So this is usually the instrument I'll use for demonstration. This is one I've been playing the last few years pretty much exclusively as a soprano. Most of the sopranos you'll see will be straight, but this is a curved one. There's a little mellower sounding, it records a little bit better. But if I was to play something without any jazz interpretation, strip it of jazz interpretation, and for our purposes, I'll use a tune that we would all know. If any of you ever took a beginning band or string methods, and you learned Mary Had a Little Lamb or something like that, little nursery rhyme tunes. If I play a jazz tune, it's not going to do you any good. So I'll play a very simple tune that you probably would know from the time you came up with Barney or the Wiggles or whatever. So we'll start with Mary Had a Little Lamb, right? This is no jazz interpretation. I'm playing it as if it would be in a beginning band book. I'm not bending the pitches any. I'm trying to play them very straight. I'm kind of tonguing all of the notes. The way it would be written down, or in classical music usually notate stuff. Now if I start to do things like I've changed the notes quite a bit. I'm making them a little bit more vocal. I kind of growled a little bit. That means I made my vocal cords move. On soprano, it usually sounds kind of weird. It sounds like a little yappy dog, right? When you go. Right, the coasters, yakety yak. It's usually a tenor, the much more masculine big saxophone, not this little yappy. So you won't see this horn playing in Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, right? Clarence Clemens wouldn't get the same effect growling on this thing. But I did use some non-traditional effects. I was growling, I was bending, I was kind of moving the notes around pitch-wise. Also, with time is something that you can do too. You can kind of move things around with time. To actually demonstrate to you, one of the things that it mentions under flexible time is syncopation. Now I could try to verbally describe that to you, but it would be much better if you actually experience what syncopation feels like. So even for those of you all the way in Burley and in Haley, if you want to either clap your hands or stomp on the desks, or you make a lot of noise, you here and here, you're a percussionist. So I just want you to give me basically a downbeat. You're all going to be like bass players. You're just going to be playing boom, boom, just that. So you can clap or you can slap your desk or whatever, but I want you to, come on, everybody wake up. I know you're sleeping here. And give 1, 2, 3. Accent on 1 a little bit. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to start out by playing Mary Had a Little Lamb with no syncopation. No syncopation at all. So keep it up. 1, 2. Right? So the part where you went, oh shit, what's going on?
Yeah, he lost it.
That's syncopation. That is syncopation. That you had a physical reaction to, whoa, what's going on? You're clapping all, I'm not with him anymore. Syncopation is accenting the weaker beat, the off beat, because I was right with you. And almost all old English folk songs, nursery rhymes, we just got through with Christmas, right? Some of the most boring rhythmic music you're going to hear is, right? No syncopation. Mozart is a lot like that too. Very little polyrhythmic type of things. It's really just right on the beat all the way through. So as you started out, you were right with me. Bop, 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 right? Bop, bop, bop. Bop, bop, all of a sudden, bop, bop. Whoa! I was playing when you weren't clapping. That's basically what syncopation is emphasizing the weaker part of the release part of the beat. In jazz, actually 2 and 4, that's what we'll see a drummer doing a lot of times. The hi-hat will be closing on 2 and 4. Usually when you're clapping like you were just doing, you were giving an accent on 1. And usually 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, like in military marches and stuff, is used da ba 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 do bam ba ba ba. 1 and 3 are the heavy beats. 2 and 4 are the release beats. Anytime somebody in their car, their truck with their new $1,000 sound system parks next to you and you hear bam, 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 that's 2 and 4. Almost all dance music has that. Right? In the mood. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. You're usually tapping your foot, tapping your foot, snapping your finger on 2 and 4. That's a form of syncopation. It's a subtler form of syncopation, but it's called the backbeat. In all pop music, all blues, all country, we just listen to Toby Keith, right? I love this barn, cack, cack, cack. That's 2 and 4. That's 2 and 4 that you're hearing. Bap, bap. Usually those really wet, loud snare drums. That's a form of syncopation. That's used quite a bit in all popular music, quite a bit in jazz particularly. Another thing would be beat displacement. I'll have you clapping again. What we'll hear with the jazz musicians, particularly Louis Armstrong, who was really kind of the first guy to come up with this idea of kind of modern time and how you're going to move stuff around, is that you can play really essentially 3 different places. You can play on top of the beat, which is where I'll start, and I'm going to still use Mary Had a Little Lamb to give us a point of reference. So as you're clapping, I'll start to play some different rhythms, but it'll feel kind of bouncy, like I'm on a trampoline. And that's the swing players tend to do that. Johnny Hodges tended to play that way. Louis Armstrong tended to play that way. A lot of the swing era musicians, and Duke Ellington and so forth, it has this kind of momentum, this kind of bounce to it. Coleman Hawkins tended to play that way. So I'll start on top of the beat, and then I'll start to play behind the beat. If I play just a little bit behind where you're clapping, you'll feel like you want to follow me. But that's the way a lot of the cool style players, guys like Lester Young, and later on Miles Davis did this quite a bit, and Chet Baker, Jerry Mulligan, Lee Konitz, Paul Desmond, would play behind the beat a little bit, and kind of lazy, almost sound like you're barely catching up to where you guys are, the bass players. And then the other style of playing is in front of the beat, ahead of the beat a little bit. Guys like Sonny Rollins tended to do that quite a bit, kind of push the beat, and it'll feel like you'll want to speed up. So let's start doing the same thing again, where you're clapping 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll start with Mary Had a Little Lamb, then I'll start improvising on it, and I'll be right on top of the beat. I can hear you guys pretty good. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Here's behind. Back to top. Here's ahead of the beat. So, and I heard you guys in Burley and Haley losing me. I could hear the clapping. It started to sound like applause at some point, so thank you for that. But you started to kind of go behind the beat, Basically, there's those 3 places that you place it. All jazz musicians will kind of do that. Some predominantly one over the other. Most kind of a combination of that. This is something that you do not find at all in any way, shape, or form in classical music. This is basically an African tradition. This is a vocal tradition that came from the drums and from the voice and from the string instruments. And the string instruments allow the flexibility, and the drums kind of give us that kind of building and stacking different types of rhythms. So as I'm clapping, the swing feel is right on top of the beat. It has a bouncy feel, kind of a chugga-chugga feel, right? Ba 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 do ba do da do da do da ba ba chunka 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 chunka. It kind of has this like locomotive kind of feel. Coleman Hawkins really personified that, and Ben Webster, a lot of saxophone players. They didn't need a rhythm section. They were just chunka 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 all the way through. Very specific, Ba 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 do da do da do da. But when I start to go ba 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 beep ba 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 ba, it's hard to do that, right? That's like the patting your head and rubbing your tummy, right? Because I'm going ba ba beep ba 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 do ba da. I know where the beat is. I'm just choosing to play behind it, right? Ba ba dee ba ba dee ba da ba 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 da ba 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 ba. Now our drummer kept very good time here in the very front, and so those of you that were keeping it steady, you should have felt me move in and out of the time. That's very much a jazz sensibility that jazz players play with. Here's where the time is. Last night at Pandora's, there was one point where there were 3 different ones. The one was in 3 different places. So I just said to everybody who was playing, layout, or stroll. Stroll's the word, but I knew many of them probably didn't know what stroll meant. So I was going quit playing, quit playing, quit playing. I'm going to play 16 bars by myself so I can recalibrate the time. So I can play, here's where 1 is. And by myself, I played where the time was to then bring them back in so they could feel where that time was. So that it wasn't, because sometimes it shifts when it shouldn't be shifting. But usually they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it to create friction. That's the way jazz works, is between the bass player that we're going to talk about in a minute and the drummer. The bass might be pushing the tempo by what you were basically clapping was like a bass line. Doom, 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 bing on every beat, right? That's a walking bass line. We're playing boom, 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 boom. Usually that's the kind of center, and then you can play, the soloist can play behind, ahead, and kind of weave in and out of that. But that soloist has to internally know where that time is. And you have to be able to play that at all times. That's a flexible sense of pitch, which I've had some very, very talented classical players come to me wanting to learn how to play jazz, and that was a huge hurdle for them. Was the, well, I'm rushing, I'm dragging. Yeah, I know. That's it. That's the secret, is that you have to know how to do that. It's like it's elastic. It's like taking a rubber band. You have those big rubber bands where you can pull back and forth, or those physical therapy things that they give you, to stretch and stuff. That's the way time is. It's kind of got to have this push and pull. The example I'll show you of Diana Krall, you'll hear that in her singing. All jazz singers, that's the difference between a jazz singer and a pop singer. Pop singers will not do that. That's why they usually sing with tracks. The infamous Ashley Simpson, Saturday Night Live event several years back when, she was singing with a track, and to me it was like, people are shocked about that? It's like, they do that all the time. And they just caught her. They just found that, she wasn't actually singing, she was singing with a track. But that's because you're pretty much replicating it note for note, very similar. You don't have that. Now blues singers do that all the time. And jazz singers, they will never sing the thing the same way. In fact, we have a saying, it's like, you never play it the same way once. It's different every time. Jazz, very much in blues, any improvisatory music is very Zen. If you've ever studied Zen, they teach you to be in the moment. What I just played for you, there's no way I could duplicate that. While you were clapping, I was playing something based on Mary Had a Little Lamb. I could not play it note for note. I mean, if you held a gun to my head, it'd be the end of your class. There's no way I could replicate what I just played. I could get you something approximate, but that period in time, that couple minutes ago, is past. It's gone. It's ephemeral. And that's the way jazz is. It's not really meant to be recorded. In fact, you have to learn it by listening to recordings. Jazz emerged at the same time recording technology did, and that was a very good thing because it's not a written music, and it's really set up to be learned by ear. And so if you have some way of documenting that, then you can kind of go back and learn a solo off of a recording or something. But even when you try to write it out, and I'm going to have several different examples I'll show you throughout the semester where it really illustrates that it's very difficult, like a Billie Holiday version of singing Georgia on My Mind. And even if you don't read music, you'll be able to see that what she is singing bears very little resemblance to the original melody as it was in the sheet music. She's choosing new notes, she's playing different time, she's growling a little bit, roughening up her voice, she's sliding and bending. It has nothing to do with that. So to go back, let's go back to the computer for a second, Randall. So that was flexible time that I just showed you there. And we talked about syncopation, so you get to experience that. Beat displacement is the in front of, behind of, on top of. And then the flexible pitch, I did a few of those. You can just leave it on the computer for now. They don't need to see me doing this. But, bend. Now that can be overdone sometimes in some playing. So it sounds a little drunk, like you're going dwa all the time. And you have to kind of watch it because the saxophone is extremely flexible, and so you have to make sure you're in control of doing that and not just kind of doing it at a knee-jerk type of thing. Growls, I already showed you that. It's a little ridiculous on the. You can't take it real seriously. It's not like he's really pissed off there, because it's so cute sounding. And then slurring, but. You can actually move between notes.